Welcome back to Usapang Bayan at kasama pa rin natin si Mr. Butch Valdes, ang chairman and founder ng Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino. Butch, we were talking earlier about the power situation and being part of that industry. I'm actually president of the Federation of Philippine Industries. Across the board, universally, one of the biggest problems that we're facing in the manufacturing industry, both in the agricultural and in the industrial side, is the high cost of power, which we all know is already the highest in at least ASEAN.
Actually, the world.
Maybe the
I've
world.
looked into it.
So you were saying that, and I cannot but totally agree with you that we really need to do something about our cost of power. And the surprising thing there about it is that if you look at the most profitable companies in the Philippines, they are the ones in the power generation, power distribution. So they're really milking the rest of the country for that. So what can you add to that? What are your plans to do something about that situation?
I'm glad you mentioned milking, because that's exactly what is happening. You see, one of the most debilitating laws that they have passed in the time of President Ramos and finally implemented Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo and fully used and abused during Noynoy Aquino's time was the APIRA law. Okay, the APIRA law privatized the whole power sector from generation, transmission to distribution of electricity. It gave to the private sector this most basic of infrastructure, okay? And of course, being given that, you remember the power purchase agreements and so on and so forth. When this was given to the private sector, they have one thing in mind, of course, profits. That's the way businesses are, right? Of course, when you do that, that's bad enough. But what that APIRA law had done as well was to prevent government from intervening to protect the population and to protect businesses from the high cost of electricity. Right now, we're paying something like 23 US cents per kilowatt hour. Whereas in the US, they're paying 12 US cents per kilowatt hour.
For a country that's much more industrialized and wealthier than us.
Right. The 12 US cents per kilowatt hour in the US constitutes 5% or less of the household income. The 23 US cents in the Philippines constitutes about 20 to 25% of the household income. You can already see how onerous and outright immoral that law was. No?
At saka yung sa ating porsyento ng kuryente, hindi na nga na gumagamit ng masyadong maraming kuryente ang ating kababayan.
It's pushing the people to bring down their own quality of life instead of going forward. No? We have to lessen our electricity use. We cannot use the aircon and so on and so forth.
And we've also become totally uncompetitive with our neighboring countries when it comes to the establishment of manufacturing facilities. Right. As a matter of fact, even in the case of the automotive sector, which I'm totally familiar with because we're part of that, we can see that the cars assembled or manufactured in the Philippines have been dropping. And they now just import completely built-up units.
Which is they're pushing us towards that rather than manufacturing.
Because it's so expensive.
It's so expensive. What the KDP, our Katipunan Demokratikong Pilipino, has actually come up with. Of course, we have major issues, but in this particular case, the KDP had come up with a press statement making a call on the president to declare a state of emergency on the power sector. First, it must, if he should suspend the implementation of the APIRA law. Second is to grant across the board a 50% discount on all electricity bills. Now, as a national security issue, and also an economic a critical economic and financial issue. Why? We're now facing one of the most dramatic price increases that had been started by the train law, and of course, assisted by Ompong and the rest of them. And it is really going to go up. And it will continue to go up and cause so much stress on the Filipino people this coming weeks and months. The only way to do this is not to reverse the train law, because it has already been made into a law, no? Or to import fish and rice, no? Of course, to the detriment of our fishermen and our rice farmers, no? The only way to do it is to attack it from this side, no? Cut down on the electricity burden on all consumers, including businesses, no? When you cut it down by 50%, you do not make the investors in the epiral law poor, no? You're only lessening what they earn. And what they earn in our rough computation is something like 300% return on their investment. No? So when you cut it down by 50%, they will still be raking it in. But what you have done is lessen their profits and give it back to the people to alleviate this pressure of price
it will
increases.
address the issue on inflation.
Inflation, and then all of the businesses that are going to be benefited by this bringing down, of course, you can now tap on them and say, please, do not increase your prices, right? And so, to some extent, this should
stimulate the economy, create more jobs, because they will now be able to afford
Right,
to
yeah.
expand their,
Yeah.
they will now become more competitive.
Right. And if the businesses that are invested in this, you know who they are, the San Miguel's, the Aboitis, the Ayalas, the Henry C's, and so on and so forth. If they are, say, we will get out if you're going to do this, we should welcome that, no? And take it over, manage it properly for the sake, because it's a public utility. The first beneficiaries of public utilities must be the public and not the private sector.
That's why it's called the public utility.
It's a public utility. And then help these businesses move into the industries that you would want, like the steel industry, smelting plants, fertilizer industry, and give them all of the incentives to approximate what they are earning in the public utility sector.
Naintindihan ko ho na ang power natin, electricity rates, repeal of the EPIRA law or suspension of that, ay isa sa cornerstone advocacies ng Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino. Tama ho?
Well, it's one.
Ano pa ho ba yung iba? Ano pa ho ba
Okay.
yung mga iba?
There are three. That's only one
Okay.
of them. The first one, we would like all of these issues, by the way, are not being touched by any political party nor any politician, and we intend to touch on them. Number one is the electoral fraud, the conspiracy of Comelec and Smartmatic. No? This has to be addressed. It is not right that Filipino leaders, no, should be elected by foreign agencies. No?
You mean it to say na naluluto ang kanilang boto?
Yes. Not a single politician, no, will go out to go against Smartmatic.
Akala ko ho ba may mga electoral protest tayo ngayon?
Meron electoral protest, no? But the only one that is helping the electoral protest is now Tito Soto, no, who is not going to run anymore. No? But again, even the kind of help that he's going to give us is not going to get the people
Ano
aware.
ho ba ang sinasabi nyo or ang akala nyo tungkol dito sa Smartmatic na ito? Paano ho ba nagiging
Isang
nagkakaroon
miyembro
ng
sa
fraud?
aming partido is a guy named Attorney Glenn Chong, no? And he's been very vocal about this, tsaka si Tito Casino, no? Now, Toti Casino. Now, they are saying that the manipulation of the Smartmatic machines has been such that there were set up, that there were side servers wherein Instead of going straight to the COMELEC, there was a detour of data that was
And
coming
they
in.
were manipulated.
And they were being manipulated. And they had proof of this. No? And this was done with the knowledge of certain COMELEC officials. No? So we're going to address that and bring it up again to the people. No? Because the politicians and political parties will not touch this.
But how about COMELEC itself? Because the leadership in COMELEC has already been changed.
Yeah.
So why couldn't it be brought to the COMELEC's attention?
It is being brought to the COMELEC's attention, but whatever they're doing right now is
It's
more
not
or less not enough and just covering each other's turf. No? But again, what is important is that the contract with Smartmatic must be rescinded. Despite all of these protests, the COMELEC went on and signed a renewal of that contract. So this has to be rescinded. Number two issue is very important. What we call the genocidal scam, of which the Dengvaxia issue is brought up. From what I understand from the chief, POW chief, Persida Acosta, there are now more than 800 deaths caused by Dengvaxia. Out of these 800 deaths, there are about 90 young children's bodies that are to be exhumed upon the request of the parents, no? And upon
So
court
hindi pa
order.
nagagawa.
Yung 90 nagawa na. 100%, 100% all Dengvaxia victims and poison. No, yan. The reason this is bad is because no one, again, of the politicians and political parties has taken this up. No concern there was perfunctory investigation, but nothing really deep where it will bring the culprits to justice. I say then genocidal. We say genocidal because the intention was to inoculate 1 million children. They were able to inoculate 800,000 children. Out of these 800,000 children, about maybe 700,000 were at risk because they were not yet they did not get dengue yet. And this vaccine is dangerous to those that have not yet, first-timers. And now we see them almost dropping like flies, no? And we are quiet. There are many others. Now, again, per my understanding, it is not just the deaths. There are people, children, these are all children. Debilitated. Some are going blind. Some have muscular dystrophy. Some their minds have been affected. These are side effects of that Dengvaxia.
Are you also saying that there could be other situations wherein inoculations or other types of medicines have been introduced into the general population?
You see, that's very possible, especially with the mindset of the previous administration.
Are you referring to a particular previous administration?
Yeah,
or?
I'm talking about Noynoy's administration.
Ano ho ba yung mindset nila?
Population control. You see? Population control, their mindset was on RH bill. And Garin and Risa Ontiveros and all of them were all pushing for the RH bill. You know, you don't cut down population by just preventing women from getting pregnant. You have to address what they call the useless eaters. The useless eaters are the children, too many children who have not yet entered the workforce, right? But you have to support them. So they're useless eaters.
Parang dead load.
Yeah. Oh. And the other useless, I use useless eaters because this is what Hitler used during his time when they went after this. The other part of users are called the senior citizens. Now, Risa Hontiveros, as the head of the PhilHealth, earmarked 10 billion pesos for this Dengvaxia thing. And
Risa Hontiveros, who was the?
She was the head of PhilHealth at the time. And she earmarked the 10 billion pesos for the Dengvaxia clinic, supposedly. Yes. But where did that what was that 10 billion pesos? It was for the senior citizens,
Okay.
right?
Well-
So when you put all of these things together, I said, this was done on purpose.
I see.
No?
Well, we need to have another station break. And please stay tuned. We'll be right back. Thank you.